coolant dripping in my eyeball. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that time it dripped in my mouth. Coolant tastes terrible. Oh. Hello, I'm that James guy, and this is my 2013 BMW 328i X-Drive that has sprung a leak. I went to pick up the kids from school yesterday, drove away, and when I came back to my parking spot, there was a nice little puddle of oil with some drippies that kind of followed it as I drove away. As you can see here, it was kind of difficult to tell what kind of oil it actually is, and so we're gonna try and figure out what that is. This is a high mileage BMW, which high mileage, 190-ish thousand kilometers. That's like 115,000 miles. That's kind of a joke. That's not high miles for any car, but for a BMW, it turns out that is very high miles. So let's try and figure out what it is. I've parked the car on the ramps, so I used the car yesterday, drove it straight onto the ramps and let it sit. So we're gonna look underneath and see what we can find. Might have to pull some covers and stuff off to kind of get to the bottom of it. From the top, I don't see anything, so clearly this is coming from transmission, engine, somewhere at the middle of the two. Let's try and figure it out. So you can see here, we've already got a puddle forming. That wasn't there when I parked it, and there's some drippies. You can see it's been coming out of here, and we're dripping there. So that's the back of the engine. It's a very purple, kind of a purple tinge to it. I can't see where it's coming from. I'm gonna have to take some of these panels off, which isn't a big deal. I took these panels off and there was quite a bit of fluid on that big metal under engine cover thing, panel, whatever, stiffener. Anyway, it seems like it's actually coolant, engine coolant. And as I kind of searched around under there, it's really hard to track where it's coming from. Let's go under the car and I'll try and show you where it's coming from. So you can see here, underneath on the bottom of the turbocharger, there is coolant dripping from it. Those two coolant lines, you can see it's pooling on the bottom of the clamp between the turbo and the downpipe, and it seems those are the coolant lines kind of right there. And if I look at it from the side, so that is the turbocharger, and I don't know, maybe this thing was off not that long ago, maybe a couple years ago. Got the updated oil supply line. I think that's the supply line, but I'm gonna have to check. That's for sure a coolant line, and we got coolant all around here, so I don't know if the line has failed. Actually, you know what? I think these are both coolant lines because they kind of look the same underneath here. There's one little kind of bolt that holds it into place. Do I just go for it and pull it apart? Is it just a bad O-ring? I think when you pull these turbos off, you actually leave the coolant lines on and you leave the oil feed line on just to make it easier. So those O-rings wouldn't have been replaced. No, I just saw another drippy go down. Okay, I think we've confirmed that those turbo lines are leaking. I'm gonna try and find some parts. Look, I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm pretty far from any major parts store. We've got Lordco, we got a Napa kind of nearby, but that's kind of it. You know, on the other hand, I could probably put this thing back together and drive it around and just have a jug of coolant on me. It's not leaking all that much. Had it been a transmission oil leak or an engine oil leak, it would have been a little more concerning, you know, but a little bit of coolant, meh. So I'm gonna try and find some parts. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, cut to the next scene when I've made that decision. All right, we are back with parts. These two O-rings right here, two little O-rings, plus the bolt. I bought the bolt just in case this ends up going straight sideways. We have a new bolt here. It has a Torx T30 head on it. So there is no actual coolant drain on this car. I guess most new cars, because they can save like $6 by not putting a drain in, so why would they? The correct way to drain the coolant on this car is to remove the intake hose off of the coolant pump. I'm not going to do that quite yet. I will once I've got the turbo line, coolant line bolt out. I want to make sure I can get this out first before I go ahead and drain it. If this ends up stripping, breaking, you know, it's going to go sideways. then we'll decide what to do from there. But at the end of the day, I want to change all the coolant on it, so I will pull that hose off the coolant pump. And I'll remove this air cleaner assembly at that time, so I can show you how to do that. And let's try and get this bolt out. I think that's the best first step here. Get that bolt out. Okay, here you can see the socket is in. I'm not sure if it's square to the Torx, which is pretty important. I'm gonna give that a couple tappies. And that's to like seat the Torx in the Torx head pretty good. It's also to kind of put a bit of shock through that bolt so that if it's like super seized, and maybe it's slightly less seized now, I don't know. Okay, I got a ratchet on it. I guess we'll just go for it. Holy cow, that was easy. Okay, it's loose. It's loose, folks. Anyway, if anybody knows anything about stuff that gets super hot and stuff that bolts to it, oftentimes they get seized. But I think this bolt is made out of some sort of a material that has like an anti-corrosion on it, judging by the new part. I can't see crap. Now that we got that bolt out, that was kind of my biggest concern. We will go ahead and pull this air box out, or this air cleaner assembly, whatever you want to call it. There's this pipe you gotta, overflow pipe you gotta move. This guy, get it out of the way. One electrical connector for the mass airflow sensor right here. Just kind of. Here's where the mass airflow sensor plugged in. Here's the pipe. And this just kind of pulls out. Like that. For safety, you always want to cover stuff like this up. Clean care, as it's called. So this is in such a tight spot, I've actually had to switch to my phone to take this video. Here's the water pump inlet pipe right down here. If I like move out, you can kind of see where that is. So you go around here to get to it. Once that pipe's off, or that hose clamp's off, you pull the pipe off the water pump. Not a big deal. Okay, try and show you what I'm doing here. Got this clamp off. Got the pipe loose, so I'm just gonna crack it just so it starts dripping a little bit. You want to drain this slow. You don't want to just puke out everywhere, because you just don't. It'll leave a big mess all over the place. All right, draining nice and slowly. I have the cap still on my coolant reservoir to kind of create a bit of a vacuum so it doesn't just all blow out at once. But I should probably just crack that, because that might be our issue here why it's not draining. Okay, we'll try to see if we can get this pipe off. These pipes off. First of all, the little screw there. Oh, hit the ground, great. And the first one's the bottom one. Oh, it's moving. It's moving, folks. Holy, no room for anything. Okay, it's moving. I have a feeling coolant's gonna come flying out. Oh, I was right. Okay, no problem. And I'm looking at the O-ring, and she don't look too happy. So now I gotta get this second one out somehow. Or I need to grab it somehow. Maybe I'll just pull and wiggle. I got my screwdriver hooked into it. Okay, there we go. A little bit annoying, but hey, I got it. So now the trick is gonna be one hand and an O-ring pick is to change those O-rings. Okay, number one O-ring. Doing this one-handed sucks. Okay, that O-ring just broke. Holy, just to show you how brittle it is and why it was leaking, I hope. Ah, there we go. New O-rings going on. There's one. Okay, I think that's the other one on. Okay, I'm just gonna punch those home. I don't think there's surface in there's too bad from what I can see and feel. You always want to use a silicone-based lubricant when lubing an O-ring before putting it in, but, of course, I don't have any. I forgot. So I got a bit of engine oil. Not recommended, but that's what we're using, folks, because that's what we got. So, top pipe goes in, being a bit stubborn. Oh, there it is. Coolant dripping in my eyeball. Oh, that hurts. Oh, okay, that one's home. Now, I just need to make that one go home. Oh, that time it dripped in my mouth. Oh, there we go. It went in. I think they're both seated. Coolant tastes
Terrible.
Oh, get this new screw in here. Wouldn't have needed it, so bit of an FYI. Maybe get one in case. Don't really need it. Oh yes, that's it. Done. Yeah. Tight. Okay, one thing I'll always stress is when you're putting a clamp back on like this, always make sure that the clamp goes in the exact same spot. You'll notice that as a clamp wears into the hose, there's those, you can see the divots in the hose. You always want to tighten it up just until it's kind of half, almost snug, and then rotate the clamp so it's in the precise location to where it was sitting before. That way it clamps the same, you won't run into any coolant leaks, you know, stuff like that. I'm just going to tighten this up. We're going to get the coolant into this thing and do a purge and check for leaks. So this is Prestone. I know it's not genuine BMW, but I bet you Prestone makes it for BMW. When you go into the store, you can see here, it's all BMW, Mini, Volvo, all the stuff. There's a nice little chart on the back, what color you want for what car, and BMW is this color all the way across, this teal. The fluid, it says right here, this fluid is teal. Use the chart to find your vehicle. I trust it. I don't care too much. I don't think it's that crucial. Teal, BMW, ready to use, pre-mixed, do not add water. So this is super easy and straightforward. Probably a funnel would be super smart right now, but you know, I'm in a hurry. You can hear it bubbling and gurgling away as the air gets pushed out. And here's a vent tube here. It's above the above the max line, but it'll go down. It'll burp out. Okay, I've got the water pump running here. All you do is put the heat to full max with the ignition on, engine not running, and you just hold the accelerator to the floor. Battery voltage has to be pretty high, and you can see it's already burped a bit. More air out. Now you can hear it go. Bunch of coolant squirting in here. Coolant squirting out of that vent line. It's just purging all the air out. That's the really nice thing about electric water pumps in some of these cars. It does about a 10-minute cycle. All I have is a trickle charger on this thing right now, which probably isn't enough, but at least you can go check for leaks without running the engine. So that's it. All back together, coolant flushed, purged. It seems to be okay. These O-rings, if you look here, are pretty crusty looking. So that explains, I mean, this one here just kind of split as soon as I tried to pull it off the pipe. So they're crusty, and that's why. Anyway, all back together, coolant's in buckets. I'm going to dispose of them responsibly. And we're done. So, if you found this useful or even just mildly entertaining, please hit the like button, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. And I will see you next time.